Hello, I am Dr. Joanna Nadin, and today I'm going to talk to you about dialogue. Now, dialogue should be easy. We all talk a lot every day. We have conversation after conversation, at least I do, certainly. But dialogue and conversation are two very different things. If you listen to a conversation, you can hear that it is meandering, it is full of hesitation, repetition, deviation. It's littered with ugly ums and ers. It is not a thing of beauty by any means, because it doesn't need to be. Conversation is not about making points or achieving closure. It's about keeping channels open. It's about ongoing open communication. Dialogue has a very different purpose to it, and as such, a very different sound. Firstly, it is not transcript. When you're recording action in a book, you should be a spotlight, not a CCTV camera. So by that I mean you focus on the important bits of action rather than having a massive pan shot that shows us every little detail that's going on. The same goes for dialogue. You need to leave out irrelevancies and concentrate the content. That said, it still needs to be lifelike. So it needs to have the swing of everyday conversation. It needs to present the illusion of conversation, but the content really needs to work for its place in your book. Make it earn its word count, basically, like everything. You want to say the maximum possible in the fewest possible words. So think of dialogue as an opportunity to be clearer, maybe funnier or cleverer than you are in real life, especially if you're going for that smart talking Buffy style cinematic vibe. The most important thing is that good dialogue should want something. Dialogue isn't just small talk, it has purpose. It can drive the plot forward. Good dialogue has layers and subtext. So it should, number one, reveal character. Number two, it should clarify objective and motive. Number three, quite importantly, it should contain an agenda. Very few people say what they mean, at least outright. They work around it. Let's look at character first. As Will Storr points out in the Science of Storytelling, which I know if you've watched the other videos, you will have heard me bang on about quite a lot. As he says, speech should be crammed with giveaways about your character that can be greedily absorbed by readers. It helps readers build models of the characters' minds, get inside their heads, try to work out what kind of person they are and what they might do in any situation. So, there are certain things a character's voice, their lexicon and their dialect should give away, whether that's in first person or third person. So it should be giving away, number one, geography. Where do they come from? Do they have an accent? Do they use dialect words? Number two, their educational level. Linked to that, their economic background. And number four, their age. Obviously, children speak in a very different way to adults because they have a different lexicon. They don't know as many words. Another tip here, a friend of mine tells the story about working on Tracy Beaker, the TV series at CBBC. And allegedly they use a ruler to cover up the name tags of who's speaking on their script. And if they cannot work out from dialogue alone who is talking, then the script is reworked until they can. Because in the same way that character drives plot, it's going to drive dialogue. Those words will only be spoken like that because that particular character is speaking. Other things that dialogue should give away. It should give away your character's relationship with the person that he or she is speaking to. They wouldn't talk to their mum in the same way they would talk to their best friend, for example. It sounds obvious, but actually it's quite easy to mess that up. Secondly, it should give away your character's attitude to the conversation topic. Does that topic make them nervous? proud, defensive? Would they rather avoid the subject altogether? And that last point, I think, is one of the most important ones. What is not said, what we read between the lines, can be as key as what's written down in black and white on the actual page. We often pretend to be one thing, brave, for example, quite often, but are shaking inside. Readers especially love to realise this gap in dialogue. It makes them feel clever. They've worked something out without having to be told it, or so they think. Dialogue needs to be structured well too, and I'm not just talking about formatting, which is obviously very specific in the same way that you would use full stops and semicolons in certain ways in prose. There is also a very strict way to format dialogue, but I will not cover that today because it's quite detailed and frankly quite boring to talk about. But the actual, what is said needs to be well structured, the rhythm of it, the balance. Mainly, for me, dialogue should be backloaded. So what do I mean by that? In badly written dialogue, useless words float to the end of sentences, leaving readers bored for a second or two. We lose concentration. So just as when you're structuring sentences, when you're writing dialogue, meaning should be delayed until the last word. It lifts dialogue's and prose's energy. It forces us to listen to every word. It makes scenes pop. It maximises impact. I also, if it's something that's a slice of dialogue that's quite long, and then you've got "she said" at the end, see if you can move that speech tag somewhere in the middle. Again, it will mean that we're concentrating far more to the end of the sentence. That "she said" just tails off slightly and lessens impact. Continuing on the badly written dialogue theme, another way dialogue can be used is to reveal backstory. But it has to be done so very, very lightly. When it's done badly, it's known as table dusting because it's reminiscent of those scenes in far too many 19th century plays where maids and butlers would come on purely to reveal crucial details about characters' lives whilst they were doing the cleaning. John Yorke in Into the Woods has a great example of this. His example is, "Oh, Ethan, dear husband, how was your job at the solicitors today?" "Wonderful, Edna. I think I may have got promotion. How was collecting our twins from the nursery?" To sum up, if any of the information can come with an "as you know" before it, then cut it, basically. This is another Yorke example of that kind of overly revealing backstory. Man A. "Isn't that the Prince Regent, only son of Queen Victoria, heir to the throne, and a man whom I'm told consorts with prostitutes?" Man B. "Yes." And this is his example of how to do it properly. Man A. "A fine man." Man B. "Hardly, he's a disgrace to his mother." Man A. "Dare you blacken the Queen's name?" Man B. "If Victoria knew her Prince Regent was a perpetual client of whores, she'd speak no more highly of him than me." This gives us all the detail, but it gives us away something of the two men's characters as well. Joss Whedon, the TV director, has another great tip. Make sure everyone has not just their own voice, but their own goal in the conversation. And just as you would do that for when you're planning a novel, every character in your novel has a goal that they're trying to achieve at the end. That goes for conversation as well. If they're just setting up cues for the protagonist all the time, it's not dialogue, it's more of a series of sound bites. To quote another screenwriter, Russell T Davies, "Good dialogue is two monologues clashing." That's because in drama, as in real life, everyone is always thinking about themselves. And I'm going to give you another few don'ts just to end before a little exercise. Try not to use loads of adverbs unless you're writing for much younger kids or going for humour. I stand with Stephen King on this. I feel it looks amateurish. That's a personal opinion. So "he whispered evilly." That evil bit we should get from whatever is being whispered and who is saying it. That goes for thesaurus words as well. Said is usually enough. And in many cases, as I pointed out with the Tracy Beaker example, you don't even need the speech tags he said and she said or they said. The last one is a bit of a formatting thing. When you are using speech tags, you can only use speaking verbs. For example, he frowned is not a speaking verb, so it is not a speech tag, it's an action. That will change the way you punctuate things. Okay, I'm going to give you a little exercise to end on here. I want you to write a scene that is entirely dialogue. Think of this as almost a TV script or a play script. You can use speech tags or small actions, but not long passages of prose. Your cue is this. Two people, both teenagers. One says to the other, "What the hell am I supposed to do with that?" Okay, that's your cue. You can pause the video and go back and listen to that again. Or you can pause and do the exercise now. But I'm going to finish now by just saying there are lots of ways for you after this to go off and improve your dialogue, as well as practicing and practicing. Number one is read books. That seems obvious, but it is. I'm always surprised by some students who don't appear to realise that writing doesn't come from nothing. Reading goes in, writing comes out for me. I think it cannot be overemphasised how much you need to read. That goes for formatting. You'll learn to format dialogue if you read a lot of dialogue. Also, controversially possibly, I'm going to tell you to watch a lot of telly and films. They are pretty much all dialogue unless they've got a voiceover. It is a very good way to learn economy in dialogue. You can also go to the BBC Writers' Room online. There are a lot of TV and film scripts that you can download there as well to see some good dialogue. But the last one, and one of the easiest, is just to listen to people all the time. And you should be doing that as writers anyway. We're nosy people by nature. We want to write about people, so we're always watching what people are up to. But really listen in to conversations and see what goes on. Okay, I hope you have fun reading books, listening in and trying to write your own dialogue too. So until next time, bye.